So speaker number 2 today is Ignash Brodsky. His speech is entitled Ego Depletion, which left me intrigued. And he is a dabbler in the human rationality movement. And in Googling that, I found out it's applying rational thought to your and acting effectively to achieve your everyday goals. Is that about right? Awesome. All right, Ignash.
Most of you here have probably already heard of the marshmallow test experiment, which was conducted in 1972 in Stanford. In this experiment, children at ages 4 to 6 were given a marshmallow, which made them ebullient, and then told that if they were to wait a bit, they would be given a second marshmallow as a reward. The researcher would then leave them in an empty room for 15 minutes. What do you suppose happened? Only in a small minority of cases did they eat the marshmallow immediately. Most children tried very hard, but only 30% of them made it the full 15 minutes. This is interesting, but the more interesting aspect is the follow-up, which over the next 40 years, the researchers tried to keep tabs on the children. And they discovered that the children that had waited the longest time generally had much better life outcomes. They were more educated, scoring on average 210 points higher on their SATs than the children that hadn't waited. They were less likely to have abused drugs, and they were less likely to have been convicted of a crime. Now, we all know that the ability to delay gratification for future reward is important in life outcomes, but a lot of people think that this is due to some sort of innate iron will that is within you, that you can call upon yourself if you're a good person or if you were lucky enough to have been born with it. But the research suggests that rather willpower is more of a resource that shouldn't be squandered. In reviewing the videos, many of which are on YouTube, so you can go look them up if you want, the children have very different tactics in what they did with the marshmallows. Some children would take the marshmallow and stare at it longingly and inhale it and poke it and play with it until they wore themselves down and they ate the thing. Whereas other children would deliberately look away or sing to themselves or even hide under the tables to get away from the marshmallow. And these children did the best. They didn't have any sort of iron will superpowers that they used to plow through the temptation. They had better strategies for dealing with the temptation. They didn't unnecessarily tax their willpower. We, every day in our lives, run into small things that tax our willpower, and often we metaphorically smell the marshmallow. I, for example, love pastries. And for that reason, I never buy donuts. And this isn't because I'm worried I may break down and eat a dozen donuts in one sitting, although that could happen. It's because simply having the donuts in my kitchen means throughout the day I have to constantly expend a little bit of willpower to resist going down and having one. And that leaves me less willpower for doing more important things throughout the day. This study produced a lot of follow-up research because it was so intriguing. And it was discovered that it's not just resisting temptation that drains your mental resources. Any sort of use of your executive function can have the same effect. In a 1998 study, students were split into 3 groups. One group had to give a talk they disagreed with about a certain policy. One group had to evaluate the policy and decide what talk they want to give based on their opinion. And a third group simply waited in an empty room. Afterwards, all 3 groups were given a difficult math problem. Now, unbeknownst to them, the math problem was actually impossible, that it was just there to test how long they would keep working on it before they gave up. And surprisingly, the students that gave the talk they disagreed with and the students that did nothing both lasted twice as long as the students that had to evaluate and decide. So having to make decisions like that can also wear down your mental resources. In a nod to Freud's old ideas, the researchers called this ego depletion. It's also more commonly known as decision fatigue. It's the same reason that in a recent interview, Barack Obama says he only ever wears blue or gray suits, because he doesn't want to have to waste any of his decision-making power that early on the day on something as trivial as his clothes, when he has so many more important things to do throughout the day. There is, in addition to these 2 things, a third topic I want to touch on, a way to increase our willpower throughout the day. It's been found, and I won't go into the research because I found I don't have enough time to cover all of it, that if you take breaks throughout the day from things that you are forcing yourself to work on, and instead work on something you want to work on for a while, it can recharge your batteries. It gives your executive function some time to rest up. For this reason, it's often a good idea to take breaks throughout the day, go get some decaf coffee, maybe surf the internet for a few minutes, and it'll increase your general productivity throughout the entire day if you do those sorts of things. Now, these are 3 personal life hacks that we can use to optimize our lives, but the studies also suggest a more general social hack that we can use. It was shown that children who were in follow-up studies, it was shown that children who were made a promise by an adult before the test, and that promise was then broken, did significantly worse on the marshmallow test. Whereas children who had made a promise made to them, and then the promise was kept, did slightly better. Now, in retrospect, this isn't very surprising. Generally, if you can't trust the adults in your life, you're not going to put in all this effort for possibly no reward at all. And when they went back and looked at the original study's data, they found that a lot of the children that had done very well came from affluent, stable environments, whereas the children that tended to do worse came from very chaotic environments. So if we can, as a society, support policies that increase the stability of children's lives that are growing up right now, we can create a future that is more rational, more educated, and less criminal. Thank you.